Saturday, August 21st. We hiked into Deer Lake last night, a campground 4 miles into the heart of the Olympic National Forest. Our task at hand was to hike the trail they call the High Divide, or the Seven Lakes. Deer Lake is a primitive campground. In order to camp here, you have to provide a bear canister. It's pretty much a bomb-proof container for bears. Luckily for me, a good buddy of mine gave me one as a wedding gift. The ecosystem in the Olympics consists of old-growth forest, subalpine meadow, and subalpine lakes. The tallest peak in the Olympics is Mount Olympus, with 7 glaciers running down its side. It rises at a height of 7,965 feet. It is definitely one of the most impressive mountains in the state of Washington. The High Divide Trail will hopefully provide us with some views of the great Mount Olympus. But first, I need some coffee. Deer Lake is one of a handful of lakes in the Olympics. It's a popular place to fish for rainbow trout, and it's a good place to drink a cup of joe. As I headed back, I ran into a group of mule deer. I was surprised how close they were to the camp. Mule deer are named for their ears, which tend to be larger than white-tailed deer. It's the only deer with a black mark on its tail. In summer, mule deer are russet brown, but in winter their coats turn gray. Now I know why they call this place Deer Lake. After the deer moved on, my fellow hiker friends started to awake from their slumber. My good friend Harsha joined me on this trip with 2 other friends, Nora and Jason. Harsha is a pretty hardcore hiker. Just don't trust him with a map. He has been rescued several times while being lost in the forest or hanging off some crazy cliff. But I have to say, I do enjoy his cooking. This morning we're having mountainside blueberry pancakes with Vermont syrup. Who said camping can't be good? After breakfast, we packed up our gear and hit the trail. The High Divide Trail starts at Deer Lake and ascends for 4 miles to Bagachi Peak. From Bagachi Peak, we will then descend to Camp 2, where we will spend the night. As we head up the trail, we start to see changes in the environment around us. Washington is a land of rain and coastal fog, supporting an abundance of trees, plants, and wildlife. One of the most abundant trees in this area is the Sitka spruce. Its range is limited to only 30 miles within the coastal range of Washington. Sitka spruce is considered the 4th tallest tree in the world. It can reach heights well in excess of 200 feet. The lichen hanging off this spruce is called old man's beard. It is actually 2 different organisms living together, an algae and a fungus. In sufficient quantities, old man's beard can suffocate the tree that it's living on. It also makes a great fire starter. Old growth forests were once abundant throughout this region. It's too bad that they're increasingly falling to the saws of the timber industry, leaving vast clear cuts in their path. Mountains dominate much of the landscape here. Most of the land here is shaped by glaciers during the last ice age. The glaciers here started to recede about 20,000 years ago. The tallest glaciers, like Mount Olympus, still retain their shape, but they're fading. As we hiked up the trail, we ran into a park ranger. To our surprise, my buddy Harsha forgot to get a permit to camp. But lucky for us, the ranger gave us permission to hike to the top, have lunch, and then head back down and stay another night at Deer Lake. I think we got off easy. I guess rangers are a little more laid back in the Olympics. As soon as we reached the top, we had some much-needed lunch and enjoyed the fantastic views of the Hoh River Valley and the Great Olympic Range. Our next camp was about a mile from Deer Lake, nestled into the woods between a small pond and a peaceful mountain stream. We set up camp and hit the sack. Tomorrow we hike back down the mountain and back to civilization. The last day in the Olympics was upon us. Overall, we hiked about 15 miles with an elevation gain of about 3,500 feet. The High Divide is a pretty easy trail, and the surrounding environment is breathtaking. If you live in the Washington area or the Northwest, you should definitely check it out. The best time to visit the Olympics is in late summer. There's less rain and the wildflowers are blooming. In conclusion, I had a blast hiking and filming the High Divide. Also, being in the company of my good friends made the trip even better. I hope watching this film will inspire you to visit the great national and state parks of America. With 3 ecosystems and nearly 1 million acres to explore, there's a lot to see in the Olympic National Park. Well, until next time.